So this is a tutorial on getting started with PHP and MySQL. I'm going to try and keep it very simple and assume you already know basics of file management and a little bit of PHP and HTML. Normally I would insist on pages that are valid HTML, and I'm going to just keep it very simple for now. So we'll start off. I go to Notepad++, and I'm just going to do a very basic HTML page. I'm not even going to bother with things like doc type and so on. You know you need that. And this is not a valid page as it stands, but it'll get us doing what we need to do. So I'll just put an H1, say this is a sample page. We're gonna talk to the database. And might as well put a paragraph. Blah de blah de blah. We could do our lorem ipsum delorem stuff. So now we've just got a basic HTML, and OCD part of me wants to put a title and so on there. Not going to bother with that. And just to demonstrate and make sure we've got PHP running, I'll put some PHP in there and just do yo yo yo. And so I've embedded some PHP. I'm going to save it, and I'm running LAMP locally. So I'm going to go to, I believe it's the C drive, find where XAMPP is installed, and then put it in the htdocs. And probably a good place here is to put maybe a folder that we can work out of, and I'll call this demos. Go into demos, and I will call this our index.php. Now that I save it, you see you get the color coding. And the way I test it is I go over to the browser and I go to localhost, and in localhost I'm going to go to the demos folder, and I don't see anything. So it's possible that something else is going on funky. So I'll go to my folders first, and I'll go to C drive and XAMPP, and make sure I spelled demos right. ABC. I don't see it here. Well, that's interesting. Oh, it's htdocs and demos. So one way of testing this is to misspell index. Go back to the browser. Oh, you know, I was in XAMPP and I didn't want to be in XAMPP. I want to be localhost demos. And there's my sample page. So never mind all that. Okay, sample page. Of course, I should put styles and all that stuff. The OCD part of me wants to do that now, but I'm just gonna not for now. So we know we have PHP running because we've got a yo yo yo, and what I want to do now is put in a little bit of conditional PHP. So the way we can do that is we can say let's just set up a variable, and the variable will be I'm just going to call it sState. I'm going to set state equal to let's say bro, and then I'll say if state equals bro, we're going to say yo yo yo, else we're going to say echo good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So in this case, it detects that this variable is bro, And if it is, it says yo, yo, yo. Otherwise, it says good afternoon. So you save it, go back to the browser, refresh with an F5, and it says yo, 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 what we'd expect. So now we change state from bro to bros, so it's no longer bro. Control S, Alt Tab, F5, and it says good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So we know that we have now a condition that we can test. So what condition do we actually want to test? Well, we'd like to test the condition of what form might have been submitted, right? So we're going to make a simple little form, and I'm going to set that up. Actually, let me do it up here. And the form will have an action equal to this same page. I think that'll work. The method will be equal to get, and the input type will be text. We'll do a line break, and again input type equals text, and we'll do a line break again, and then input type equals submit, value equals do it, and that should end the form. We'll go ahead and make sure these are valid. Close, self-closing tags. We save this and look at it, and we'll find that it has the form but no instructions. So before the input type, we should put what name, and then we'll say what value. Again, this depends on really what our application is supposed to do. But now we have a simple form with a do it, and we may even want to put, we'll move the do it over a little bit, and I'm going to put just a bunch of spaces. Yes, and this is not the cleanest way to move something over, but I'm feeling lazy. Check it, and now I've got that. Paste a few more, and later on we could put it in a pretty table. Okay, so what name, what value. Now if I put some stuff there like Joe and 34 and hit do it, what happens is it loads this page, but you see up here we don't have any values. It's not putting the query string. So I have to look and say, okay, well, what did I expect it to do? Well, I have to give it a variable name here. So the name equals, in this case, I don't even want what name. Let's put what creature, and so the name equals creature. Those don't have to match, but it makes sense in this case. Name equals description, and what describe the beast. So we'll say what myth describe it. So now I'm starting to come up with a theme, and so the what myth is, we'll say the myth of the Yeti, and describe it is hairy. Now I hit do it, and you see up at the top it says creature equals Yeti and description equals hairy. So I want to actually change my message based on what people put in. So we're going to change this variable, and we'll check our, instead of the state, we'll put let's see, what can we do there? Well, for now we'll just leave it to state, and we'll put something like, if it's Yeti, we'll say rar, and otherwise, and then let's do a couple others. We'll say else if what's a swamp? what's the swamp monster? We'll put vampire here. Else I suck blood. So we have vampire and we have Yeti. And now instead of assigning the state directly, we'll say let's go get the state from the variable. This assumes you've already been through the tutorials for this sort of thing. And what we're going to do is the variable in the get that's called the creature. So we save it, come back around, hit F5. Now since it didn't find anything, it said good afternoon ladies and gentlemen. But if I put Yeti and Harry, it put up there, oh I put Yet instead of Yeti. Yeti, Harry, hit it, and now it says RAR. And then if I put vampire, bloody, it says I suck blood. So now we've got a point where whatever we put in the form determines what our PHP does. And that's a good start. So one of the problems though is when we first go here, it says wait, undefined index blah blah blah, because there was no actual value here. So what we need to do is put some code that says, let's see what the message says. It says line 20. So this line is breaking because it doesn't know what to put in there because there is no value there. So we actually have to put a little bit of code that says if is set, and I believe we just use this. And I'm going to have to go get out my manual because I don't honestly remember. Then we can do all this other stuff. And we can indent all of this inside this big if statement. There's probably a more elegant way to do this. And then I'm going to put a note to myself, end is set. That's commented out. And let's see if that makes a difference. Save it, and we're just going to refresh that page. And we get an error on line 22, which means that's not quite right. And I'm going to have to look up how we check that. So if I can recall, it was chapter 5. I'm actually just looking at this. So is set is correct, and also I'm going to go ahead and do single quotes there. And remember to close the parentheses. Right, so we'll try that again. Refresh that. And now notice it bypasses this whole statement, which is what we want to do. And we could actually do a couple of different statements here. Let's simplify this and just put this all as a series of if statements. And so we're going to say if, let's see, what's a good choice there? Well, I'm going to leave this like this for now, and let's just examine what's going on. So as we want to go to the next level, there's a couple things. We want to have a value that goes into the database, comes out of the database. We want to do a full CRUD. So let's think about 4 different scenarios. I'm going to actually make another form, and well, I'll leave the form like this for now. But what I'm going to do is what myth. For now, what do you want to do? And describe it, and that'll be fine. And so what we're going to do is have different inputs. And so if the creature is, let's say in this case, add, echo, we're going to put h2. Now we would want to insert into the database. Right. So That's if you put add. And otherwise, if you put remove, so this is just lining up what we think we need to do. Now, we want to remove a value from the database. And then we'll do another one. So we can add, we can remove, and so we'll change that to, in fact, let's use the terms CRUD. So remove, read, update, delete. So delete, add, which is going to create, and I'm going to copy these two lines. So basically I'm just making a big statement here. So create, let's do read, update, and delete. We'd want to insert into the database. We would want to select from the database. We want to update a value in the database. We want to delete a value from the database. And we're going to add a few more notes about what we need to do here. We need to select what we want, then delete it. So that's 2 steps, and the same goes with the update. I'm afraid I've mucked up my HTML here. So it's important to understand here that you're intermingling HTML and PHP, and that can be tricky to get in the habit of it. And so update a value. But first we have to select the one to update, and then have a form to update it in. And this is tricky because the delete and the update have a lot more work associated with them. And then finally we have an else if, and we say heck, I don't know what you want to do. So we'll save that, refresh it, and so for now, what do you want to do? And I'm going to put blah and do it, and it says heck, I don't know what you want to do. I'm going to put update, and it says we want to update a value in the database. I'll put delete, and so you want to delete a value in the database. I want to select, okay, what was it, read. I want to read, I'm going to select from the database, so CRUD. What did I do? Update, create. So now I've got all the values of the possible things I might want to do. And then we have the other option, which is if nothing goes on. So there's a couple different ways to do this. One is to actually make a menu where you click this to do this, this to do this, this to do this. But instead we're going to just do this as one page. And we will allow this to kind of tell us what code to put in there. So the way I'm going to illustrate this is each of these will represent all the necessary code. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this finishing paragraph, and we'll put an HR here. And also put one at the top, so we know where the top and the bottom is where the PHP is starting. And so what happens next? Well, the easiest thing to do, I'm going to go ahead and simplify this code. When we want to select, I'll put, let's just list what's there. And insert, need to take values from the form and run on submit. And then, so this is one we're going to need to get the form, and maybe we'll change these into a, change that into a paragraph. And since I say first, we should do that first, but we'll just take it one step at a time. This is where the diagrams I did in class come in handy. So we'd want to insert in the database, and I always like to come back to the beginning. If you came to this form for the first time, notice it gives us nothing, because if those values aren't set, it doesn't bother. So let's see, is set. And we don't really need this creature anymore. Actually, that's what we're calling it, so we'll leave that for now. So let's look at a quick example. So we'll take this a little bit further. We're just taking notes to ourselves. We're going to say echo the creature was, and then we're going to go ahead and put $S. We'll go ahead and get the value again. We'll put $S state, and now we need to formulate an SQL statement to put that in. And there was more to it. There was another bit of information. It was $S description, and that was $_get bracket quote quote, and I think it was description. And later we'll change state to creature, and we'll put that and put $_S description, and let's see what happens. Line 33, typical to be missing something like that. Need a semicolon there. You can't quite see off the line. So we'll put Godzilla green, do it. It says I don't know what to do because it's not actually giving us that information. So let's do a little, let's move this up for now. And we just want to make sure we're getting both values from the form. Notice that by using double quotes, we can actually put the variables with the $signs directly in there. Save that, refresh, and let's see, let's try it again. Yeti, Harry, and we've got a problem on line 28 and 29. It says undefined variable, state, and description. Oh, because they don't have underscores in there. I'm getting the underscores confused. Try it again. And it says the creature was Yeti Harry. That was right. We'll put Godzilla green and Godzilla green. So it's getting those values. and then if we put create green, it says create green, it says we want to insert in the database. And we have the same problem on line 33 of those underscores that I didn't mean to put there. Okay, so now what we have is the beginning of a framework where we can begin to think about values. So we will go ahead and make an SQL statement in here, and I'm going to do $$SQL, equals, and the syntax will be something like, whoops, insert into, and then we want the table name. So let's assume that this table will be called monsters values, and then those values will be a blank because we're always going to start with a primary key, and then mon name, and then mon description. And I'm going to put the same 3-letter prefix on all of mine, so everything will start with mon. And just to be really safe, I'm going to put lowercase monsters is the name of my table. I haven't made these tables yet, but now I have the beginning of that. I've assigned that, and then now I need to figure out how to execute the query to do this, as well as connect to the database. Right? So I have a couple of different things to do to then run this SQL. And so I'm going to go look at code. Now, ideally, we really want to run this as a what am I trying to say? Using the MVC model. But for simplicity's sake, I'm going to defer that a little bit right now. And all we are going to do is execute the query, but then we're going to come back and have to talk to the database. So, and just to create very clean code, I may want to put these on different lines. So I might do it like this, which is kind of habit. So the keywords line up. And let's see. And we're going to go ahead and put the names here. So we're going to put mon ID, comma, mon name, comma, mon description. And this, of course, points out to me that I don't have proper values in there. So what I need there is, I'm going to put single quotes, and here I'm going to put let's see, well, the variable that holds this is the $S state, and $S description. And now would be a good time to change state to monster, and I have to do it wherever there's a state. So I'm going to do a Control F, find and replace, and wherever I have S state, I'm going to replace it with S monster. So I'll find the next one, and I have it in a lot of places, so you see this gets a lot easier. So I'll replace that one, and 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 replace that one. And now it should continue to work. It'd be a good time to save it and test. So let me just I'll start from scratch, getting rid of the query string up here, and the myth is Yeti, and describe it as hairy. Let's say hair, and I already do it, and it said Yeti hair. It says I don't know what you want to do. If I type create, describe it as green, do it. It says you'd want to insert into the database. Okay, so we basically have a scenario where, so we're at the point now where we want to start thinking about how to say what we should be doing. So let's change that form just a little bit. And this is building up. So if you already know how to do this, you can fast forward. But if not, this is building up your skills. So what I'm going to do is add a field here. And this field is going to be what do you want to do? And this one is not going to be creature. This is going to be, we'll call it action. Not to be confused with this action up here, which is actually an attribute value pair. And we should probably, to be consistent with the other things I've done, go ahead and make this a monster instead of a creature. And down here, instead of creature, I change monster. And if is set is going to be set to action. So now we're checking to see if there's an action set. And for each of these things, instead of monster, we're going to check action. And I should probably get that variable and start using that as well. And later on, this becomes how we tell it what particular thing we want to do. This is where planning it out on paper saves you a lot of time. I'm just kind of slinging code now. Don't do this at home, kiddies. So you get the action, set it to a variable, go through here. Let's go back around. And so what do you want to do? I want to insert what myth Yeti describe as Harry. Do it. The creature is Yeti or Harry. Heck, I don't know what to do. So what happened? I put action is insert. I needed to use CRUD terms. So create what myth Yeti Harry. And then it says, okay, we want to insert in the database, take the values from the form, and run and submit. So now we have an SQL insert into mon monsters, the mon ID, the mon name, the mon description, and the values assigned to S monster and the assigned to S description. And so now we need to talk about how to connect to the database and how to execute this SQL. So to execute the SQL, we're going to simply write, or code rather, $DB forward arrow exec, which is execute, and then $S SQL, which is, in other words, we're giving it the SQL command. And we save this. Now, none of this stuff exists yet. So up at the top here, we're going to create code that says, where do we want to put that? We'll put well, let's leave it like that for a minute and think about the code we want to actually connect to the database. We want to set up the information to connect to the database. So we're going to start by creating a number of items. One of them is going to be the database server name. So we'll say S DB server. and that will be local host, and let's see what else we need. And DB name equals, we'll call that teaching, the name in this particular case. And do a local host. Let me try it this way. I'm going to copy the book, even though there's different ways to do this, like the way in W3 schools should work as well. Local host, the DB name is teaching. And we're going to have the usual stuff, the username, and I'm going to use root. And at the moment I don't believe I have a password in this. And then we do a try. And we make a new database. And we use that information. To keep this simpler, I'm going to copy the book convention here. Only it's going to be DSN, SDSN, SDSN, and so we say new PDO SDSN, S user, $S password, and then this way we get a message if it doesn't connect. Now it wants to include an error page that I haven't written. You got an error, and $S error. Exit. Okay, so now we're trying to connect. A lot of different things can go wrong here, so we'll try one step at a time. The most obvious in this case is that I haven't created this database, but I'm curious how it'll display anyway. So this is going to happen at the top of the page. I'll start by going just to the page by default. And I have a typo on line 33. So it says we have a try and a catch. And let's make sure we've got the syntax right. Try opens and closes, and then catch opens and closes. Oh, and we have to put have some parameters in there. PDO exception E. So it'll throw an exception. Come back, run it, and it says you got a blah 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 unknown database teaching, so it doesn't know what I'm talking about. So now I'm going to jump over to localhost, and I think it was XAMPP and phpMyAdmin, and here's phpMyAdmin. I'm going to go to database, and I'm going to create a new database called monsters. Create it, sticking with lowercase, And the new table, whoops, that was a mistake because that was not the database. The database was teaching. So I go back to localhost, go to my databases, pick monsters and delete it. So are you sure you want to do that? I say yes. I'm going to make a new database called teaching. And then I want a new table called monsters with 3 fields in it. And the first field is going to be mon ID. It's going to be an integer. And it's going to be the primary key and auto increment. That's the primary key. Then mon name, and that's going to be a varchar. And the length could be 33, and then mon description, and that'll be a varchar, and the length will be 200. And none of these can be null, so I leave everything else as is, and I save. It gives me the SQL syntax for it, and now I go back to my page and I rerun it, and I still have a problem, which is an unknown database. So I'm going to go back and come back, and unknown database teaching. So DB name teaching. I think I've messed up my quotes here. So I'm looking, MySQL :host is localhost, and the database name is the database name. So let's try that. F5, and now I don't get an error. So what do you want to do? I want to insert create Yeti Harry do it. Crease was there. Now we want to insert the crease was here. Now we need to formulate SQL statement and put that in. However, we don't know if it went in, so we're going to jump over and let's look at it. And sure enough, we have Yeti and Harry in the database. So we go back to the browser and we type insert, and we want Godzilla. Describe it: big, green, and ugly. Do it. We go back to the database. We'll hit browse again, and not in there. So I just see still Yeti and Harry. So go to teaching, and here's my monsters. I browse, and that did not work. Okay, so something's going on here. Says monster, Godzilla, description. Oh, because I said insert instead of create. So create Godzilla, big, green, and ugly. Do it again. Now I go back, refresh this, and go to databases, teaching, monsters. Now I've Yeti and Godzilla. So part of the problem is that on my form, I have to remember what to type here. So let me just go ahead and fix that really quickly while I'm here. And so in the form, instead of doing text input, which is, where is my text input? Geez, where did my form go? Form's up here, right? The type is going to be radio. The name is going to be action. And And let's specify, let's do all of our actions. So this is going to be insert, let's do create, read, update, and delete. And then after each one, I'm going to put a break. And they have to actually have values assigned to them. And this allows me to just pick a radio button. So save it, come back, let's go back as always to Scratch, refresh, and now what do you want to do? I want to create a value. What myth? Bigfoot, which is kind of the same as Yeti. Bigfoot, Harrier, Harry, still. I hit do it. Notice it says action is create. Let me go check again. This time I will, let's see, there must be a way to refresh this. Refresh, and now I have Bigfoot. So now we're safely inserting values, but what's really nice is when you insert it and you can immediately see your results. So the next step is let's go ahead and figure out how to read the values. So we did that. Now if we type in read and blah de blah and do it, said we will want to select from the database. So the question is, how do we select from the database? So we're going to go to our code and find the select part. It says if the action was select, we'll do the same kind of thing. Let's create the SSQL equals select star from monsters, and what do we do with it at that point is the question. We want to put it into some kind of variable where we can then display it on the screen. We're going to then run that value like we did before, or rather run the SQL statement. So we do $, DB exact $S SQL, and that runs it. And we're going to actually assign it to an array, and we'll get S results equals. And now, just for starts, I'm going to echo, whoa, something's happening here, echo $S results, and see what that gives us. So we're going to read, and we don't actually care about that stuff so much, and it just gave us a 0. So it's not putting any values, but the fact that that gave me something, if I put a funky variable there that's not valid, I shouldn't get 0. and it doesn't know what I'm talking about. So it does know what I'm talking about there. And what I need to do is write some code that cycles through it. And what we're going to do is I think we want to do a product list. And we're going to try this for each $, for each monster as I'm not quite sure how this is going to work. For each monster as $s results, let's table tr, and then we have to echo the td and then some kind of value, and then close the td, and then and for each and then we echo the ending of our table row in our table. So now we just have to see how the for each is going to display these values. Let's see what happens there. We want to read. We have an error on line 72. So we've got an unexpected angle bracket, line 72, right here, which means it somehow doesn't like. There we go, so we didn't close those. And let's see what happens now. Okay, undefined variable monster in C. I think that this is not, I think maybe it's for each results as, let's just try X. So I got results there. db.exec. I don't need that. Once again, caught by misnaming. It's S results here and S results here. I've been getting lazy. Okay, so in valid argument supplied, but that improved. For each S results here, S results So for now, I'm going to actually comment this out, and for simplicity's sake, go back to the way W3 Schools does it. While $x equals I'm going to go over to W3 Schools and take this little example. So I've got the results equals DBAppFromScratchA, which is similar to this. So I'm going to put them side by side so I can compare. So that creates an array that gets the result set. And then we have this while the row equal mySQL. So we'll change this to S results. So it assigns it to row, and then the row is we'll put something like mom ID and mom name. It should go cycle through. This is a little bit haphazard, but freewheel it. F5. MySQL fetch array, expect parameter 1 to be a resource or an integer. So I wonder if there's another S results equal $sign S results fetch. Evidently, I'm supposed to do query here instead. So let's see. That gets us where we're trying to go. So we did a query. So now we don't get any errors. but we didn't actually output anything. So we're going to try echoing the $X alarm ID. We're having some kind of quotation problem here. So I'm just going to dispense with the HTML for a moment. And now we have 11YYHH, which is promising. I'll test it again. And so we're going to go back and let's see if we can add some information like so it should get the name and the ID, and in between put a space. Instead we're getting, maybe that's Yeti, no, Y and H. Let's remind what's in there. Remember what's in there. Yeti and Harry, one Yeti Harry. It's just repeating. Saying one Yeti Harry, but it's doing it 4 times, even though there are only 3 values in the database. So when I hit read, that code executes. And worth checking its mon ID, mon name. In the database we have mon ID, mon name, and we'll do mon description and see what happens. We just got it. So we leave the quotes, go into the quotes, leave the quotes, go into the quotes, leave the quotes, leave the quotes again. And now we have 5 values there. Something to do with the for each, I'm sure. So looking back, I'm going to try this without this fetch. because I think that's more for if you have a multi-dimensional array or something. We'll save that, come back, refresh it, and now we have these Yeti, Hairy, Godzilla, Big Green, Ugly, Bigfoot, Hair still. So a couple things we want to do to make this look a little prettier is we put open TD and then close TD, open TD, and we duplicate that. And then after we close a TD, we close a table row. And we start a new table row. It's all HTML. So that each one has it, and then when it gets to the end of that, it closes the row and closes the table. So I'm going to get rid of all this other stuff. And we should now have something that's starting to look a little respectable. Yeti, Hairy, Godzilla, Big Green and Ugly, Bigfoot and Hairier still. And so now we can create a new one. What myth? Loch Ness Monster. Long Wet Lizard. We hit do it. And now we can hit read and do it. And there it is. So that brings up the point, wouldn't we just want to display it every single time without having to hit read? So let's go ahead and modify our code so that the select occurs anyway. So that's all this stuff, else if action. So let's pull all this code, we'll cut it and put it down at the bottom. And we'll get rid of the else if. So basically it's going to run no matter what. In fact, we can get rid of all this too. And it's going to still have the note. Where it says we want to select from the database. Right? And this else, heck, I don't know what you want to do. We can leave that for now. So now we go back and we refresh the page. And no matter what, it always selects that. So even if we hit create and we put man on moon far away, now I hit do it, and immediately it displays my results. So that's a vast improvement. And now that we know that this is working right, we can comment out that note that says we want to select from the database. So it doesn't show there. One other thing we can test is, what about when we first go to the page the very first time? We don't get that, and maybe we do want that. So the reason is it's outside of this if loop. So let's go ahead and move all of this code outside of the end is set. And just for kicks, we'll put an HR. And so now, and we'll go ahead and outdent this. There's my outdent. There we go. So it's going to put a horizontal rule and then display that no matter what. And for now I'm going to put border equals 1. And I'm also going to put table header. So this is going to say ID, close the table header. Another table header is going to say name, close the table header. Another table header is going to say description, close the table header. Close the table row, start a new row, and then I have to start a row there. Again, all this is HTML. We go back around, we refresh, and line 89 has a typo. So we echo a quote, well, these quotes are probably throwing it off. So we'll put double quotes there. We'll put a single quote there. Or we can do escape characters, Control S, Alt Tab, F5. And now we've got all this, and since this stuff is displayed here, we can get rid of the read because that's automatic. And basically when we hit the do it, we want it to create. So we'll go ahead and change the form. The read is going to happen no matter what, so we don't need to worry about that. And the create could be our default. In other words, if they submit the form, it could automatically go in as create. So maybe we should put 2 buttons here. And we'll do that a little bit later, but for now, we'll have to tidy that up later. But let's just summarize what we've done. All one page. You come to the page for the first time. You have a choice of create, update, delete, but only create works. So you hit create, and you say gingerbread man, and describe it tasty but arrogant, and I hit do it, and then it runs the rest of the code here. And note we say we want to insert into the database, and we have notes to ourselves, but we'll go ahead and comment those out so we don't have to look at them anymore. And we'll comment out that line, and this one, and this one, because they all are there. Now I do wonder if we're supposed to disconnect from the database, and I'm betting we are. It's usually a good idea. Yeah, I don't have a disconnection with the database, so we'll leave that for now. But we now have this application. We've got our values here. So the next step is going to be to add, let's go ahead and show you how easy it is to add an extra field next to these two. So we go down to the table, and we're going to add another TD here. Go ahead and add it on the next line, and we'll start this TD, and then we'll put a delete, close the TD, and we want that delete to be a hyperlink, so we do href equals, for now we'll just leave it blank, to the current page, and close that. So it's in theory going to pass it, but we also need it to pass the ID. So we'll do blank slash question mark and then put ID equals we want it to be this ID that's up here. So we're going to actually get that and put $SID equals $X mon ID, and I can clean this up later. So I'll put ID equals $SID. So it should embed it within that. Close the quote, put that there. And I have to escape these, so what I will do is put a backslash in front of that one, and a backslash in front of that one. So now I have this big delete link, and if you hover over it, you see that's ID 1, ID 2, and so on. So when I click these, it'll actually pass that ID up there. And I probably should go ahead and add an action in here. ID equals that, ampersand, we'll put ampersand amp semicolon, action equals delete. And now when we run this, we put the cursor over there, it says ID1 action equals delete, ID4 action equals delete, ID7 action equals delete, and so on. By the same token, we could go in and we could make another whole one. So that would tell us which one to delete. But what if we want another one that said update? So we'll set the action equal to update, and we can go ahead and make, let's see what that looks like. Better to say update, right? And we want to turn this into an actual form. So we would actually turn each of these fields into a form itself. So we'll go in here and put input type equals text. Let's change these to single quotes so we can put double quotes inside there. And name equals, that was the, well, we don't even want to do that one because that's the ID, that's not going to change. But over here, go ahead and close this one off and come to a new line. We put input type equals text. Single quotes around them. Name equals name, and then that will be that type, and then we'll finish with oh yeah, we want it to say value equals, and then it's actually gonna, this is where it gets tricky. Gonna do a quote there, and then start that one and do a double quote there, and then close the input text tag. And we'll see if that makes any sense. We got this mucked up on 93. So we start our HTML, and the type equals text, and the name equals name, and the value equals quote, and then we finish that and we concatenate a name there, and then we go back and we start a quote, it ends that, and then we have to end with a single quote. Stuff gets dodgy. I should have stuck with single quotes. Okay, so now you see Yeti, and Godzilla, and Bigfoot, and Loch Ness Monster are all form fields. So I can pretty much duplicate this the same way. I'm going to bring this down to the new line. Echo. And do the exact same thing all the way up to $X. And then we do the same thing at the end of that. We just replace that with single quote, / TD, single quotes again. And now we have two forms, and once we write the SQL, we ought to be able to hit delete on that, and it would delete that particular one. And we ought to be able to hit Harry and take Harry too much, and hit update, and that would pass that information as well. At the moment, we're not quite ready to do that. We've got to tidy up that and some other things, but now we've got kind of the shell of everything we need to do, and in fact we can remove this create, update, delete, because it'll be pretty obvious once we're done with those other things. So we'll deal with that next go around.